even know what you're saying anymore.
Maybe it's cicada. Not a cicada. We have heard the cicadas.
Really? They're coming.
It has begun.
And they're like two Anyways, welcome to the Follow Focus podcast.
The flagship podcast of cicadas.
Cicadas and hornets.
Cicadas and hornets. Yeah.
And transition glasses.
Yeah. So we've got new lighting. Those of you at home can probably
can't tell how harsh it is.
You can't tell how harsh it is. Yeah. These are literally like it's 3 giant like RGB mixed LED spotlights that you use for like live event stuff. Like they're stage lights.
Yeah, wash lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. To wash the stage.
And we have 3 of them up just behind a big piece of diffusion fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And it's working better than it has any right to.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, it's kind of like one of those, like, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but we do this event in Cambridge every year. It's like a pool party type of thing outside, right? They bring in these lights that look like balloons, and they just go on like stands like that, but obviously like industrial and like with 100 pounds of sand.
Yeah.
And it's just like 50 feet in the air, and it's just this massive lantern looking thing.
I've seen those.
That's what our little system up there looks like.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of mimicking stuff that I've seen, but I've never done because I've never had the wattage available to do it. But it's like you'll have just like a giant, like, 5,000 watt fixture.
Yeah.
And then you've got like a 10 by 10 sheet of really intense diffusion fabric, and you basically turn those into like a super powered softbox, and you can light an entire stage like that.
Yeah.
Because you need that much. The difference is that their diffusion fabric that they would use is a lot more diffuse, if that's the word, than what we're using. Yeah, which means it blocks out a ton of light, which means you need more light on the other side. So you've just got like the sun basically blasting through this thing and lighting a stage.
This is the Amazon special, like the outdoor square diffusion thing for like direct sunlight. So it
works.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it works. And I think it was relatively inexpensive. But you get what you pay for. Yeah, you get what you pay for. Especially, this is when I was early on, and you could go through that door right now and see the packaging, because it was just in a black sleeve with all the plastic wrap and everything still on it. Yeah. So I hadn't used it. I bought it. I thought it was a really good idea. I thought I was going to get into doing some outdoor stuff and never used it.
That's also like a really advanced, like even I've done a fair amount of like outdoor shooting, and I really haven't used much in terms of like flags or diffusion fabric or anything like that. Now, part of that is because it's a much more like kind of, it's a more advanced lighting technique. Yeah. But also it really requires you to have multiple people on set to like set up and manage, and it takes time. Yep. So, but yeah, we were talking before, I mentioned, I wonder, because this light is so like intense and kind of harsh, it's honestly not too bright, and I think that's why it's not triggering my glasses, because I have transition lenses, and so like oftentimes if I'm outdoors and like taking photos or something like that, these are just completely black.
That's awesome.
Which I actually, for my for our Christmas card last year, we wanted to use a photo from like, I think we were picking berries or apple picking from the fall or something like that.
Please tell me you photoshopped your eyes into the glasses.
100% I did.
Yes.
I took it from another photo that was like indoors. Yep. And I took those eyes and I just dropped them on.
That's awesome.
And fortunately, I apparently smile and pose the exact same way in every photo.
In every picture.
Every single one. Because like the angles matched up.
It was like perfect.
The shape of the eye, like how much I was squinting in each one. It was flawless.
Wow.
This is what happens when you have like an imagery nerd working on a Christmas card. Because Kate, my wife, was just like, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. And I was like, no.
No, my eyes need to be in this. And then you took, a couple hours out of your day to cut things, find things, and then put it together.
It took me like 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
It was fine. I did try Photoshop's like generative AI thing.
Ooh.
I knew it wasn't going to work.
Ooh.
I mean, like, it looked like, if you didn't know what I looked like,
you'd be good.
It would sell it.
Yeah.
But as soon as you look at it, it's like, okay,
that's not him.
Your eyes do not look like that. It was a little funky.
I mean, talk about like AI generated things.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the AI piece that I showed you? Did I show you it?
I don't know, which one are you talking about?
With Jesus?
You did show me that.
Did we talk about that last time?
I think we
I
talked.
think I just showed you.
You showed me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you showed me off camera.
DJ Jesus.
DJ Jesus.
And his hands were holy but looked terrible. Now tell me why AI cannot figure out fingers. They can figure everything else out. They could make a whole scene and expand an image as large as you want it to be, but they can't make you have 5 normal fingers on a hand.
Also text.
Text is terrible.
Can't do text.
That has, like, Futurama. Like, I would imagine the text that comes out of AI is like the writing on like all the Futurama like buildings and things. Like
it feels
the weird,
like it's another language sometimes because it's like that kind of looks like
makes
an
sense.
A, but it's not
like
quite.
the first couple letters look right, and then it's just line dash dash line.
Yeah.
You know, like it's.
I think a lot of it is because I actually I worked on a video for one of my clients he's a science communicator, Trace Dominguez. He's amazing, does great work.
What a great name.
Right, his channel name is Uno Dos of Trace. And it's
genius.
Oh, chef's kiss. His branding is
genius.
on point. But we did a video together where he was talking about AI, generative AI, and basically why is it so bad? Specifically, like, why is it so bad at getting things right or correct? And it's basically because AI doesn't, like, even text-based AI doesn't know what it's saying.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't know, like, oh, I'm going to write a sentence about XYZ. It basically just says, okay, I just said this word based on all of my like crazy algorithms happening in the black box somewhere. What is most likely the next word that should go here? And that's all it does. It just does that over and over again.
Yeah.
It has no context of what it's saying. So I think like,
but it does the do.
It does the do.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing is like, it doesn't know that humans should only have 5 fingers. It just knows that when you see like one finger, chances are high there's going to be another one next to it, which is why you end up with AI just being like 7 fingers
on the hand. Yeah, okay.
That's my
very
theory.
That's very interesting. That's a good take on it.
Yeah. Tying it back to video, Premiere actually, well, Adobe announced a few new generative AI features that are coming to Premiere, not Photoshop, Premiere for video. Wow. I believe they announced it at NAB. And it's kind of interesting because it's very much like Photoshop's generative fill. You select an area and you say, I want to remove this object or I want to add this object here or change something. And then it does the generative AI thing like Photoshop does of putting that in there. But then it actually like it tracks it, and inserts it. And like in their demos, it looks pretty legit. So I'm really curious to see what that ends up looking like. I'm sure it will also fail hilariously.
Yeah,
multiple
of course,
times.
Right, and of course, you know, we're opposites in the world of I will have the beta version and I will play with the whole thing, you know, and see what happens, and then crash a couple projects a couple times. You know,
I will have the beta version, but I won't do client work in it. I'll toy around with it like I had the Photoshop generative beta. But I won't. Like I always put the next iOS update on my phone, the public beta.
Yeah.
Always do that. Because like if my phone has to like restart or something like that, it's really not a big deal.
Right.
Everything on there's in the cloud. If I needed to reformat it or something, it's like I'm good. But like if I needed to reinstall macOS on my like laptop, suddenly it's like that's a lot of lost productivity.
Yeah, the world will end now.
Pretty much. Yeah. So I'm excited to try it.
Yeah.
But I will not try it in production. I will try it off on the side when I have some free time. Maybe.
I actually had a thought when you were going on the me having thoughts. It's kind of crazy. It never happens, right? So
it both doesn't happen and happens all the time.
Often, very often. It was on the subject of, you know, you never had one of these light situations. Like you never got one of the outdoor standy, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I remember buying it because I was like, my camera just doesn't do well in the sunlight. And as you were talking about that, I was like, you know, that probably really like goes in line with the fact that I had no idea what I was doing with my camera and camera settings. You know, Like I everything would be super, 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 super overexposed.
Oh, sure.
And this and that. So I thought I needed a filter or any type of anything there. Like I didn't think ND filter because I didn't know what it was.
Sure.
I didn't know they existed. But yeah, so maybe that's a thing we put out there. We say you don't need these fancy tools and technology. Just kind of know how to use your camera to an extent.
Yeah, that's a
because
big part of it.
we were at this shoot
I was gonna
this
say,
weekend,
yeah.
and the light was harsh.
It was
Straight
very
sun.
bright.
Yeah.
Straight. I mean, it was a beautiful day.
Beautiful day.
But it was a like a car meetup show outside. So you had really bright direct sun. It was morning, which morning sun I always find to be harsher than afternoon sun.
Yeah.
We didn't stay there until noon because noon when the sun's going straight down, that's when you get like shadows under the eyes and everyone looks terrible. But you had that coupled with all these very shiny cars that were like, it was kind of cool, especially in your shots, because the light would reflect off when you get cool like flares and like lens flares and stuff. You get more of that because you have the Mirage matte box with the, remind me, is it Black Mist?
Yeah, and I think I have it goes half, quarter, eighth. I guess that's just the density of it, or like I don't really know what that number means yet.
It might be like how much of a, maybe they're saying that's how much of a stop it reduces.
Very, very likely, actually.
Like ND filters, they say like this is 2 stops of ND, 4 stops, 6 stops. So maybe that's
very likely. So I have a quarter. So I'm like right in the middle. I think that was the only one available. So it wasn't like the strongest, but not the weakest.
Yeah.
But you and I have noticed some really cool things we will be shooting at the same everything settings, but mine will be just a tad off or a tad different, and not in a bad way or anything. It's more of like
it's just about matching
style.
It.
Yeah, right. For us, it's about matching it. We had the conversation in the car on the phone, like while I was on the way here, and you were like, yeah, maybe if we do shoots together until I get mine, like I'll just have you take that out,
Which we did not do.
Not do. It's still in there.
Yeah.
So,
but this is a good. I mean, you probably won't notice the difference in like by the time you're seeing this if you're watching the visual version.
Yeah.
But like I noticed it really more because with these podcasts, because we shoot with both of our Blackmagic. So my angle is my Blackmagic, yours is yours, and then we've got one of our phones acting as the wide shot, which works remarkably well with the Blackmagic app, I will say. But when I was trying to match our 2 shots on episode 1, I realized there's a couple things. One, there's the obvious thing that when you put this mist filter over, because basically it's the black mist is essentially a sheet of glass that goes in front of the lens that has like it's I don't want to say that it's like fogged up.
Okay, yeah.
But it's kind of like that. And it's a black
mist. There's a
because
professional term, but that's if you don't know what a black mist filter is or something, or that's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
Like a pro mist is like an actual like hazy, white, clear type of a thing.
Yeah.
The black mist is black. So it's got like a darker tint to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're on the right track.
So it doesn't blur the image,
right?
Because you still get sharp lines.
Yep.
But it will.
It's so close to the glass that it basically just manipulates the light.
Yeah, it's sort of it's like spreading the light out a little bit before it hits the sensor. So like good example. This is more of a pro mist example, but if you've ever seen Barbara Walters. Like old Barbara Walters, when she would do her spots and she would be like talking to the camera, she's so like it looks like you're like in a dream or you've like
somebody rubbed their thumb across the
front
of the lens.
A way that you can do this, the old school way would be either like spreading Vaseline over the lens in a really thin sheet, or you can take a piece of like pantyhose and if you stretch it over the lens. It does kind of the same. It's kind of the same vibe. That's basically what a pro mist does, and then black mist is just that, but it's like it's darker and it's kind of manipulating the shadows a little bit.
Yeah.
But the side effect is that you got way cooler flares.
Yeah.
Because it kind of like it's not a lens flare thing, but it's like well, you can actually, I don't think your shot is wide enough, but our lovely lamp that we have in the middle here,
True.
that thing, you can actually kind of tell if you go back to episode 1 when your camera was a wide shot from the side. There's like this halo of light around it.
Yeah.
It's a very cool look.
Yeah. And I think all of the filters in the Mirage system, I truly think they're more for style. Like they're more stylized filters.
Yes.
Obviously there's ND and there's practical things and things like that, but they've got blue flares, white flares, rainbow flares. They've got this one filter that literally looks like sprinkles are on the actual glass, right? And what it does, it just takes all the light and flares it in different colors and things like that. And then your mists and stuff. But the true don't get a Mirage if you just want ND filters.
Yeah.
Like get a ND filter that screws onto your lens. You can keep it there. Or get like a small rig matte box that is a little less expensive, right? But you can get specifically ND filters, right? And they still have stylized ones and things like that. But Mirage is like, their thing is like they want it to be. That's
their gold standard.
Yeah,
their filters,
is style.
They have a wider variety of filters and they're probably higher quality.
Yes. Now, the only gripe that I have, if that's the right word, which is, issue problem. Yeah, qualm, same thing, right? In the same world.
You used
right?
gripe correctly. Issue problem, I think, was a little off the mark, but continue.
Same thing, whatever. So my only gripe with it, back to what I was saying, is the filters are super proprietary, right? There's not a lot of circular, or actually zero, circular 95 millimeter glass is what it is. And the only company that makes it is Tilta and this company called Vaxis, Vaxis.
Oh, interesting.
And the supply for these filters is very limited. A lot of out of stock.
That's why you were saying you had to get the
quarter. That's why I had to get the quarter, right? So like there is a variable ND system for this, right? And there's a wireless variable ND system also, so you can get a wireless thing going and whatever.
That is
a little crazy, right? If I wanted to spend $600 off the rip for the Mirage, that's what I would have gotten, right? But the filter, like even just standard ND filters, some of the stops of ND aren't available, and I haven't seen them. Because I have like the B&H notification, like notify me when it comes back in stock. Haven't got one yet.
That's crazy. I mean,
so it worries me,
right?
In the sense of maybe it's not working out for Tilta, and they stopped like making this super proprietary thing.
I feel like the Mirage is pretty ubiquitous.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. But it's like making me think, like, okay, why can't I get a 2-stop ND filter anymore?
That is a little, So two things. One, I'm sure that the fact that it is a like specifics. I mean, calling it proprietary is kind of funny because it's literally just a piece of glass in a specific shape. It's not like, oh, the software doesn't work with this filter.
Right. It doesn't have a specific like for the, hey, we're back with the follow focus handle over here, right? But like doesn't have like a certain pin or like certain array. It's not like something like rosette, whatever.
So I wonder if they have like a legal, I don't know if it would be like a trademark or a copyright, but something that basically says only we or our suppliers can make something in that.
Yep.
Though that's never stopped people from cloning things before.
The amount of Chinese clones of things like on Amazon or Temu or Wish.
Yeah.
It happens. It's still out there.
Just not with that. Maybe there's not enough of a market for them to.
Might not be.
But I also find it funny because I haven't actually seen the filters out.
Yeah.
Because you haven't you don't swap your filters a lot. You leave
your
mist
I have a standard. Yeah. So my actual box. So the cool thing about this too is that the matte box also can hold the standard 4x5.6 ND or filter. Which is a rectangular filter.
That's what I would have assumed.
And it can go, right? You could see it like kind of from here, the reflection. Yeah. I just have a clear thing on there for protection.
Right.
You know, but I can get now that I think about it, I can get that in an ND. The only thing is, it's so far away from the sensor. Adding so many filters, I'm gonna vignette.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my one problem.
But it's just so funny to me that they're circular filters
Yeah.
for a rectangular matte box.
Yep.
That's very strange. I've been thinking about, because I mean, I like the look, and like as we are shooting together more, having it so that, you know, our angles match really nicely would be good. So I've been thinking like Mirage, but also I've been looking at, you know, I mean, we get a ton of stuff from Small Rig.
Yeah.
So
we are Small Rig fanboys.
Yeah. I at some point I need to sit down and look like, okay, what is the Small Rig thing? What's the difference?
Yep.
And what kind of supply is there? Because maybe they are in a more open standard, so like other companies will be making more filters for a Small Rig matte box. I don't know. But that comes back to what we were originally talking about the differences.
Yes.
Because in theory, you would think, okay, this thing it darkens the image a bit. So like for a situation like this where we're shooting the same thing in the same space, you know, you are irised up a little bit more than me.
I'm at like 2.2 or something.
Yeah, you're at like 2.2 and I'm at like 4.5. So it's I mean, that's more than
double, half, whatever you want to call it.
It's like 2 stops offset, and that might be the lighting is not consistent, so that might be part of it. Because it kind of defeats our whole, like, maybe it's like a quarter of a stop. It's a little bit more than that.
True, yeah.
And then it's affecting the quality of the light, the softness, the flares, and all that. But the other thing that I noticed, especially after the shoot we did, the outdoor shoot at the car show, I noticed two things.
Okay.
One, it seems to put a little bit of a green cast to your footage. It's very subtle. I notice it more here in a studio environment, but also I noticed it in your footage from the car show. So I'm curious if that is a known thing of like, the coloration of the black mist is not true black, it's like a little green.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I noticed. The other thing I noticed was that specifically outdoors, your outdoor shots, the shadows in your footage were like, normally when I shoot stuff, no matter, even if I'm like super overexposed, there's always shadows that are hitting at like 0% if you look at a waveform. So 0%, true black, stuff is like kissing down there. Your stuff, in a lot of your shots, not all, but a lot of your shots, your shadows ended at like 20%. And like I had to like, you know, I like was cranking in Lumetri, I was cranking the black point slider all the way down, and it still couldn't get it to the shadows that I wanted.
Yeah.
So that we were talking about, because it's weird, you would think it darkens the image.
Yeah.
So you would think it would darken the shadows too.
Yep.
So more research is needed. Because we were thinking maybe it's because of the outdoor sun, it reacts with the black mist. It like bounces the light around more.
Right.
And so it kind of like brightens the low end.
Yeah, and it, because remember, you've got internal NDs, right? So you can kind of mess with that. Mine, I don't have NDs. Like that's one thing. Like I've literally gone completely around what I was actually wanting to do, which was get ND filters, and I got a matte box with a polarizer and a black mist.
Well, they didn't have it.
They literally didn't have it. And if I did want it, it was like double the price to actually get the variable ND thing, which I don't feel like I need variable. Right. ND, if I just get a couple stops, like I feel like I'm okay. Because we shot with this, which is something I was trying to get to earlier, and I totally, I just disappeared. Right.
You're getting back to it.
Like, we shot, and I don't have ND filters or anything, but our image was still pretty close, right? You probably added a couple stops. Like I don't know exactly what you did on yours.
So this was interesting because this was like some of the most intense direct sun that I've ever shot in. Like there wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was just
at
direct
all. Morning
light.
Sunlight. Yeah.
So I was actually at the 6K Pro. My camera has 3 levels of ND that you can switch between.
Okay.
Technically 4 if you count no ND, and they go in 2 stop increments. So there's nothing. There's 2 stops. There's 4 stops, and then there's 6 stops.
Okay.
And I was at full 6 stops.
And I was at 0.
Yeah.
I was at no stops of ND minus whatever you want to consider for the black mist.
Yeah.
Which is like weird to me, you know? Like we were able to, but I changed my shutter angle or whatever it was.
Your angle was pretty different.
I think I was at 30. Like as I was driving here, I think I was at a 30 shutter angle, right? And that allowed me to be where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we talked about the other day, you know, there's like a scientific mathematic thing for shutter angle, frame rates, and like all these different things. Yeah. And what I said to you was, so shutter angle is just like what you want kind of a thing, you know, because it's more of like how you want to interpret the image. If you want the image to have that motion blur, you know, smoothness, or if you want it to be super sharp, but, you know, granularly like real life. Like that's kind of what I saw a video on it, and that's what they compared it to, was a war movie. And in the war movie, every time they set off an explosion or a bomb and everything, you see the dirt particles. Yeah. But obviously, if you break it down frame by frame, it's not blurry. There's no motion, but it's like that particle was here. Now it's here. It crystal clear though.
Yeah. Sports is another instance where they do high shutter speed, or well, because you can either measure shutter speed as like fractions of a second of basically how long is the shutter open for each frame, or you can do it by degrees. Which Blackmagic is one of the few cameras, until you get like really expensive, that gives you the option to view it as either a frame.
Yeah, you have the choice.
Either a shutter speed or a shutter angle. Shutter angle is traditionally more used in cinema because if it's an angle, the relationship from your shutter speed to your frame rate doesn't change. Because like if you think about it, say you set your shutter speed of like, okay, 1/60th of a second. Every frame, that shutter is going to be open for 1/60th of a second. But if you're shooting 30 frames a second, a frame is a certain amount, a certain duration.
Yeah.
So 1/60th of that duration, it's open. If you shoot at 24 frames a second, that each frame is a little longer.
Yeah.
But the shutter is still open for 1/60th. So that's why shutter angle is nice, because it's like
very interesting.
It means that you don't have to then like basically do math in your head of like, oh, I'm shooting at this frame rate. That means I need to adjust.
So in theory, without, you know, any YouTube University, I'm gonna bring it up in every podcast. YouTube University, right?
You're a big fan.
Without any YouTube University degree about shutter angle and shutter speed, I could be pretty safe just always running shutter angle.
Yes.
Pretty safe.
I mean, so then it becomes a question of, it means that it's not going to change, that relationship isn't going to change if you're shooting 30 frames or 24 or 60.
Right.
So then all you have to worry about is how crisp do I want the motion to be?
Yeah.
So like if you're shooting a war movie where you want everything to feel really like hyper realistic, and like everything's super sharp, and like that kind of makes you feel as an audience member like you've got a ton of adrenaline and you can like see everything. Like, or sports, you want to see all the motion of the guys running or, you know, throwing or whatever it is. You would do higher shutter angle. Basically your shutter is open for less time, which means that, you know, the longer the shutter is open, the more the thing that you're capturing moves while it's open, and that's where you get motion blur. It's the difference.
So like 15, say 30, right? 30 shutter angle means that is more for like sports and like drag racing and things like that. Because I'll be crisper and I won't get that motion blur when I'm
exactly, because it's open for, and the angle comes from, it's an old school cinema thing. I also only recently learned about shutter angle. Like,
you're welcome.
When I got this camera, I started to like look into it.
I'll just say you're welcome. It was me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you for coming into my dreams and telling me what I needed to research.
Before we even knew each other existed.
Yep.
That's what I'm here for.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's because on an old school film camera, they didn't have a shutter that was like, you know, you never have, if in a video camera, you don't actually have a shutter that's like opening and closing. That would be very clicky and loud. So what they had was a wheel.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw, that was in that video. It was a wheel and the angle actually meant something.
Yeah.
And then it was how long the the reel would be exposed to light.
Exactly.
Like,
so the
time.
angle is basically how much of a wedge has been cut out of this disc that's spinning in front of the lens. Yeah, it's cool. Like once you actually like look at the history of this stuff, you're like, oh, that's why we refer to it this way.
Yep.
Yeah, it's cool. So yeah, cool. a lower angle means less light is getting through, but which also means the image is darker.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why for you
I was at a 30.
You cranked your shutter speed down. You were letting in less light. So it's kind of like it's similar to reducing your aperture. But again, it's like how you reduce your aperture, you're affecting your depth of field. You reduce your shutter speed, you're affecting your motion blur.
Yeah.
So you can combine.
So it could be a style, like I was saying to you on text. I was like, it could be a stylistic choice.
100%.
Yeah.
The place that shutter speed gets weird, and the reason that I tend to leave mine at 180 degrees.
Yes.
At all times. Partially because I have yet to be in a situation where I want that stylistic look, but also because 180 degrees basically means your shutter is always open for half of a frame.
Yeah.
You at other angles, so like say I change my shutter speed to be instead of 180 degrees, say I said it was 190.
Okay.
So you've got a weird relationship then where basically your frame rate and your shutter speed are at like slightly different tempos, and they will start to like drift out of sync with each other.
So there was a thing that I saw in my studies that was saying there's a reason. Remember how you were changing it on my camera? You saw it said 179 point or 179.5 or something,
0.8
right?
Or something like that. Yeah.
I saw, and sometimes if I'm just tapping the arrows, it's like 89.5.
It'll jump to like commonly used.
But I saw something, and I don't know if this even relates to what you were saying or if you have knowledge of this, but they were saying 179.5 or whatever in relation to everything you're talking about makes more sense mathematically than 180. Like just like that hair of a difference. Yeah.
I haven't heard of that. But that's an interesting thought.
It's in my search history. I'll find it for you.
Send me the article because that's interesting. I wonder if that has to do with
video, but yeah.
I wonder if that has to do with the whole like 30 frames a second is really 29.97.
Yeah,
so it might be something to do with that.
Could be.
I don't know.
2398, Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It could be that.
Yeah, I don't think I watched the full video, so they probably said more about it, but yeah.
Maybe.
I'll send that to you.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like once you start going down that rabbit hole, ooh, like you just find more and more. And you also find so many people with so many different opinions.
Yeah, which is why I personally think, well, here's my opinion, it's super stylistic. Like I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think it's the look you want to capture, which is what I've always been into is like, do I want to capture the super flat, standard style of a shoot? Like if I wanted to shoot a movie, like do I just want it to look like us and look like a standard rom-com or something, you know what I mean? Or do I want it to be moody? And do I want to have control of that? Yeah. That's why I got the Mirage and the Black Mist. I was like, I want my stuff to have that look to it. And people can associate, obviously, when we do stuff together and it makes way more sense to be the same, right? It's easier for us in post,
easier to
right?
match stuff, yeah.
But I would love in my filmmaking, videography, shooting career for people to be like, that's his look.
Yeah.
Like that's his vibe, that's his look.
And there have been tons of directors and filmmakers who they have a specific look. Exactly. And even if as a viewer you don't know, like, oh yeah, he always does a high shutter speed.
Right.
You might not know that, but you know the look.
You know something is happening that person always does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like stuff like shutter speed, because like I'm a big post guy, like so things like
circle back to the postman.
Yeah. But like a lot of things can be adjusted in post.
Yeah.
You can make colors match. So like the fact that your angle might be a little bit greener and a little bit darker
That's why we shoot in ProRes and B-raw, baby.
Right, exactly. So it's
control.
Like I can mess with that. One of my favorite phrases I ever heard a long time ago was "pixels are made to be punished."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of
that's intense, but it makes sense.
Yeah, especially nowadays, like you've got so much information, you can mess with stuff.
Yeah.
So you can make stuff feel like kind of moody and gritty with color and all that. But there's a few things you can't control.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control depth of field. You're getting better,
right.
like with like synthetic depth of field, like portrait mode on your iPhone.
Right.
Yeah, but like
it
really,
used to be terrible.
It's getting so much better.
It used to be so bad that it's like it was a it was a hard soft edge.
Yeah.
You know, like you would move and then you would see the background behind you with a soft like fake bokeh.
It was so bad.
Depth of field.
And like zoom.
And it was a hard line.
Zoom still looks like that. If you use Zoom's blurred background thing,
I think terrible. Zoom's died a little bit in the past couple of years.
I agree.
You know,
I very much agree.
Wonder why. I don't know.
Yeah, it's almost like we can see each other.
Yeah, it's like we
person.
can actually talk together.
Yeah.
You know?
But so depth of field is something that's very difficult to do. So like get your depth of field right on set
while you're there. Yeah.
Motion blur is another one that like for the there's a motion blur effect that you can add, but it's nearly impossible
doing
to make
it in
right.
body is
because like if you add a motion blur or a directional blur, it just adds a directional blur to everything, whether it's moving or not. So that's another thing you want to get. And then I don't know what category you'd put the black mist in.
Right, yeah.
But it's a similar thing of like it is doing stuff. The optics of that are things that are going to be really hard to fake in post later.
Yeah. It's like creative light manipulation.
Yeah,
is what we can call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the only way, I mean, I guess I could put a mask and like put a little Gaussian blur on it at like 1%, you know, like if that with like 2% opacity, like to make it even.
But then how much work are you putting into it to make it
versus
look like that?
Yeah, like because you look at me like in an image in the video or a subject on like our shoot, the people look great.
Yeah.
All it does in the black mist really does to the actual subject is soften them.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't really give them much of like an emission of like that light or flare or like anything like that.
It's only the highlights. So like the sunlight glancing off of a car.
Right. That light has to be exactly a car, right?
Yeah.
Or like this light. It is like specifically for that because we could shoot this at a wide angle with that black mist.
Mm-hmm.
This light will be super, super highlighted and flaring.
Yeah.
But you and I will be relatively just soft.
And you can see that if you go back to episode 1, before
I had the wide angle.
Yeah, that was before we introduced the iPhone as the wide shot. So both of our cameras were basically doing wide shots. But yours was over on the side. And so if you look at that side angle, you can see the light.
This light is
and you can see this light in both angles.
Yeah.
So if you look at the like head-on wide shot on mine, the light looks like, you know, it's a bulb. It's sitting there. It's got a clean hard edge. The light is fairly contained. On yours, it's got like I said, that halo.
Glowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very cool. And it's that is the kind of stuff that it makes sense to get filters for, to try and manipulate before you get into post.
Yeah. And another thing, for client work, obviously that's a new world for me, right? The actual like not weddings, like, you know, like client work, working with businesses and doing that type of thing.
Sure.
From what I've learned online, right? YouTube University. One thing, the matte box, you can sell your stuff. It costs more because you have a matte box.
It looks
the look of it.
Yeah.
Even if you got no filters in there, even if it's just a clear safety thing like I got on mine.
Which admittedly, like a matte box does do useful things even on its own.
Yeah.
Like honestly for outdoors, like it's
blocking that direct sun or even the flares from lights.
It's literally the bill on your hat. Yeah. That's basically what a matte box is.
Yep, exactly.
But it's one of those things that people just like associate with, oh, that's a fancy
exactly
camera.
So then that comes right back into my second point, which is the black mist like is not what you get in every day. Like if you go buy a Canon T6i or something and try to shoot a video with it, it looks good. It's crisp, it's sharp, right? And you can still get bokeh with it, obviously, or like a depth of field. I keep saying bokeh. Depth of field with like a certain lens or something, right?
Oh, sure.
But if you add a little bit of that softness, it looks like it's coming out of a camera that can shoot a movie.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what people would associate it to, is what I've learned. I haven't experienced it yet. We together we do have a client that does not like depth of field, or
well, it very much depends,
right?
Because like I love shallow depth of field, and like whenever
I'm a sucker for some.
I think most film people.
Yeah, like if I could have this thing at the 1.2 right now, and just have like literally, I think at 1.2, I could only get like this plane in focus. Yeah. You know, so it's super, super good if I just want to focus on like an object.
Yeah.
Person, not very good. Not
so much. And that's more of the client we have that doesn't, that like they're setting up like a studio thing, kind of similar to what we're doing here. But they've got angles where basically they're concerned of like if the depth of field is too shallow. If someone leans, which or
I should be blurry on here. You know,
yeah.
A little bit.
You kind of are.
Yeah.
We're irised. We're irised down more because of the lighting in here, more so than we usually are. But yeah, you're probably like a little blurred on that.
Yeah.
So that's their main.
But yeah, concern. That's like one of their things.
But stylistically, when I shoot stuff for them, I do stuff on shallow depth of field all the time. I do rack focuses and all that. They love that.
You are a fan of the rack focus.
Oh, I'm such a fan of a rack
That is
focus.
Your favorite. You are what I've observed, a rack focus man and a pan man.
Yes.
You are a rack focus pan man.
That's true.
What am I?
I was just thinking that. And I feel like I haven't seen.
Wow.
I haven't seen as much, especially if you're raw footage.
I get it. It's fine.
Because like we shot that wedding together. We both shot a ton of stuff.
Yep.
You edited it, so you saw all my raw stuff. I only saw the stuff of yours that like made it into.
I only used, actually, reality. Yeah. I only used like 5 of your clips, and it was nothing against you.
No.
It just you know, most of your stuff was, you've never really shot weddings.
Never shot weddings, and I also knew that like you were getting.
I was main guy and you were B cam.
Yeah.
Right.
So my eye was very much looking for like those specialty like close up and like more stylistic shots. Yes. More and so than I probably should have.
They fit well, right? I guess in theory I did use like 4 or 5 clips of like the candy and like all that stuff. But yeah, and I only used a couple of your shots, but my favorite shot of yours was the rack focus of the flowers going up the staircase. I was like he has the hint and has the essence of what he should be getting. This was great. Yeah, so I didn't say that to you, but I forgot to mention that.
I saw
so
that
was
shot
great.
in the cut.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was one of my. That and the final shot of the building at night. That was like, those are my 2 favorite shots out of the bunch.
The night shots were great. And my favorite thing about that shot is that because you were the one shooting it, so you were
I was across the street.
You were across the street, and I'm like, if you look closely, I am actually in that shot with like our gear, because we had mostly packed up.
We were leaving. We were getting out, and I was like, I'm gonna go across the street and take a shot. A shot of the building.
So I'm guarding our Pelican cases, like over kind of like behind a street lamp, trying to like make sure I wasn't in the shot.
Yep.
But like,
you can see
so
him look around
away.
a little bit as the car goes by, and just like yeah.
It was small enough that it worked.
Yeah, if you know, you know. You know what I mean?
If you know, yeah.
But yeah, that in the wedding world, the mist is a good thing because it's dreamy. Like you get that dreamy
look. It romanticizes.
Yeah. But in the client work world, I'm interested to see what it really does.
Yeah.
You know, like the commercial world, you know.
I mean, it really depends on the client.
Yeah.
And what they're looking for, which can be tricky because they don't usually know, or they don't know how to express what they're looking for.
They just know what they like and they don't like when they see it.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of, I mean, something that has been especially in the editing world, because again, I'm the postman.
Postman.
Editing, I would say, is like 70% of what I've done.
I'm gonna get you an easy
post
button
stuff.
that says Postman.
Yeah.
And the T-shirt.
And the T-shirt.
It's
Still
on the
waiting
list.
on that.
When's your birthday?
September.
Wow.
So you got time.
Yeah.
You got time. You can
I
get
can
something
make it
from
happen.
Cafe Press in that time.
Cafe Press. What in the world is that?
Have you ever heard of Cafe Press?
No. And then what was the other one you told me about? Business cards? Moo or something?
Moo.
Yeah, I've never heard of that in my life.
The brand awareness.
Vistaprint, baby. You know?
I mean, what sounds better? Do you want to go to a place called Vistaprint, Windows Vista, ew, or do you want to go to Moo?
Wow.
What sounds more fun?
Well, I think of ice cream, so
There you go.
yeah.
Ice cream.
Yeah,
Sold.
Sold.
Where was I going with this?
Couldn't tell you, buddy.
Oh, that's a problem.
You're welcome. Welcome to my brain. Hey,
You've
Brian's brain.
You've sucked me in.
The section of the podcast where Brian's brain just takes over. Yeah.
Apparently.
No, you were talking about client work. They like
right.
the way they don't know what they like. Yeah.
So something that I've had to do a lot on the post side is matching the client style.
Yeah.
And because like I have, if left to my own devices, there is a certain way that I will cut something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain like pace. There's a certain like a way that I think it works well. A client is not necessarily going to agree with that.
Right. They're not you.
Yeah, exactly. So like one of the very first examples I had with that was when I was interning at Discovery. Specifically, I was interning at Revision 3, which was it was like one of the first internet television companies.
Oh, wow.
And then Discovery acquired them. So they had this very kind of like startup vibe, and everything they did was strictly internet focused. So it being internet focused in like, the early 2010s, a lot of it was they basically wanted a faster paced style of editing than what I was used to.
Oh, wow.
So the first example of that I ran into was I was cutting a piece together. We did a lot of like just kind of like talking head stuff, talking to cameras, and then B-roll stuff. And I did a cut of something, and they looked at it and they're like, cool, that's great, but remove all of the breath. So literally, this was an extreme example.
Wow.
But they literally did not want to hear someone breathe ever. So it was just, instead of it being like, hey everyone, welcome to Follow Focus, I'm talking with Brian today, it was like, hey everyone, welcome to Follow Focus, cut, I'm talking to Brian today. And it just never slowed
Holy cow.
down. It was a vibe. Especially, it was very much an of the time vibe.
Oh, wow.
For the internet. It was like, we are going there's still some people that do that. That is a much faster pace than I would choose to normally. But I eventually learned, like, okay, if I'm doing stuff for them, they want this really fast paced. They don't want breath. They want it to be just like tight and like breakneck and caffeinated. And then there are other clients after that like they wanted more breath. So I'm actually injecting silence into, an interview to like really pace out the ideas. Huh. But it's like
interesting.
You have to like, so just like with visuals of like, does this client like the dreamy cinematic vibe? Do they want something a little more like docu-style realistic? It's something you got to kind of feel out. And it takes time. Like it's a tricky thing to do if it's a one-off client, because you just have the one project to like figure it out. But if it's, multiples, like as the project continues, you get better and better at
dialing in their style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a thing. And like I haven't had too much experience of that with camera stuff, because I tend to go for a very like kind of, how did you describe when we were talking about my color work that I do. And you described it as like very like kind of true to life but more punchy, I think was how you described it. Because you asked me like, you said like when I did color stuff, you noticed.
If it was last week,
I think it was last week.
Way too long.
I think it was literally last week. But you said that it was like if like I basically used like the entire spectrum of light, of like full dark to full light.
I agree with what you're saying, so I probably did say this. Yeah.
It does sound like you, doesn't it? I think I have the text somewhere. I could show it to you.
Wow, it was a text.
Pretty sure it was a text.
Wow.
Because you were asking like, is that like the quote unquote correct way of doing it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the answer is no.
And if I don't know if the people know this. They might have gathered it, but we've never said it directly. you're really old and you've been doing this for a while, right? And I'm almost as old as you.
Yes.
But I've only been doing it I've been dabbling for a long time, but didn't really start dialing in and like making it my thing until maybe 6 months ago. Like I like even within the past year I was kind of dabbling, but like within the past 6 months I've been really at it. So when I ask these dumb questions or say these really nuanced things, it's because in relativity to you and your experience, I'm like a baby. And I'm not afraid to ask questions.
I mean, that is important.
Yeah.
Side note, I'm both flattered and insulted.
You're welcome.
The old man has spoken.
Wait. Mandalorian. I have spoken.
I have spoken.
And then that's it. You say anything else, it just doesn't matter.
Oh, you want to talk about a beautifully shot. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on Mandalorian. Because then we'll talk about virtual sets. And then I will never shut up.
That is something that I just don't understand. I don't get it.
We should talk about it at some point. That'll be a future episode.
You said Chipotle on third. Well, we can't do Friday because we're doing dinner Friday.
That is true.
Yeah.
We could
do
Friday. Have Chipotle for dinner.
No, I already told Dallas about the pizza thing, and she was like, "Yeah, let's go."
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We will report back on the pizza next week.
Yeah. Don't forget that.
I'm not forgetting.
All right. Okay.
I'm the one who makes the dough. So.
The bread or the dough?
That took me a minute.
Sorry.
The
dough.
The dough.
Okay.
Wait, which one is the? I've heard people say money is both bread and dough.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's the whole point. So you're wrong either way.
I'm both wrong and right. No
Correct.
matter what.
Yes.
I'm in a superposition.
That's when you just say yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So this all stemmed from the idea of like what I think your shooting style is.
Okay. Yes, that was where we were. We were
talking about how I haven't seen as much of your raw stuff as you have seen of my raw stuff. But from what I can tell, you're really into the shoulder rig handheld.
Dude, that's huge.
Vibe.
Yeah.
So like you like stuff that has a little bit of shake. You like stuff that has a little bit of like that kind of dreamy vibe to it. I also will say most of the stuff that I've seen of yours has been shot with the 70-200 lens. So
which is whose?
Which is mine. But it means that everything just by necessity is a tight shot.
It's tight, yeah.
Because it's either a tight shot or a tight shot.
Yeah.
So like I have not really seen too much of your footage that is shot with a quote unquote normal lens.
Yeah. Which is funny because my go-to is always my 85.
Yeah,
which is really is.
Which is still tighter than I go usually.
When I had my Canons, my go-to was a nifty 50.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a 50 is a great one. I had my original 2 lenses that I got when I got my Blackmagic, and I had to get Canon EF lenses for the first time. I got a nifty 50. Which are only a Canon Nifty 50 is like $120.
Yeah,
they are so cheap and they look fantastic.
So great, yeah, so good.
But then my next one was
even the new ones aren't that expensive. Like the RF 50, like the RF nice 50s are still only.
I think it's because it's such a
two
staple.
Couple. Yeah, yeah,
and I mean it's a prime lens.
Yeah,
so you're not. It's not a zoom lens. It's nice and compact. It's a lovely like go-to. But for a lot of my shooting style, I tend to want to get wider, a lot wider than that. So my go-to daily driver, which is on my rig right now, is an 18-35. It's a Sigma. The Sigma 18-35, which is it's lovely. That thing is a workhorse, especially if you are shooting stuff in tighter environments, tighter quarters. Like, for something like this is about as like close as I would want to get with it, or that you can get with it.
Yeah.
For a situation like this, ideally, I should actually probably bring my 50.
It would work. Yeah. It definitely would work.
But like this one, I can get the camera closer.
Yeah.
But I tend to go wider. You tend to go tighter.
Yep.
You also tend to, in your framing, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but you will get really tight, and you will actually like kind of, you'll almost crop the subject out just a little bit.
Yeah, I fill the frame.
Yeah, you fill the frame totally. I always err. Just my gut is always like, oh, I don't want to cut anything out, so I will err on the side of like,
Yeah.
get close, but still have it like
Yep.
fitting within the frame with some space.
So now, I think personally it's more on the like what do they tell you? You want eye line on the top
Top third. Yeah.
right? If you go eye line on the top third with a 70, I was probably at like 95 maybe when I was shooting a couple of those interview shots at the car show or at the car meet. If I go eye line with that, I am capturing, if I'm like top third, right? And I'm not filling the space fully. I am like collarbone to like having this much headroom at the top.
Yeah. No, you need to.
So when I fill the screen, it's actually just out of the necessity because if I don't, it looks so weird.
Oh, sure.
You know?
And again, I'm saying that because like most of what I've seen has been you with the 70 to 200 or an 85, because even an 85 for my like
this is like as much headroom. I mean, that's framed pretty well.
That's pretty normal. You're also on the other side of the room because you have the 70 to 200 on.
No, it's 85.
Oh, that's your 85. See, even an 85 is so, but an 85 is so much tighter than I'm used to. Like my first two lenses were 35 mil is my like is the tightest I can go until I'm switching to a 50, and the 50 is like my tight.
I love your 70 to 200 because my gap is 16, 24, 85. Yeah. So I can't like I shot my test video on Instagram testing out the Magic Fizz that we talked about last time, right? And I had the 24 on, but the like I don't know what it was about it, but I love depth. Like I just love depth of field.
I mean, a higher focal length you can get.
Yeah. So when I was playing with the 24, I was maybe 2 feet away, like from the camera, and I felt like I needed to be that close in frame to get the look that I wanted. Yeah. Right? I had a hard light. Well, it was kind of softened by the black mist, but coming from the back, and then that was just how I was lit with it, and I was super tight on the camera. Yeah. I don't know why. It's just what I like. Like that's my like.
Everyone's got an aesthetic.
Yeah, that's what I like.
I mean, that's what you were talking about. You want to have a look that like, is distinct enough that people can associate it with you.
Now another thing. Where was I going? We were talking about the having a look, right? And I think that I was talking about my different lenses, 16, 24, 85. I think I've been forced into that tight angle. Forced, right? Because that's what I have. And everything that I do, 24 just seems too wide. 16's obviously wider. Right. And then I'd have an 85. Yeah. So I think I've indirectly taught myself that that's the look that I want to go for, and that's what I like because that's what I can shoot. Yeah. That's literally been the only tool that I have is that 85.
Yeah. Well, and like that's the kind of stuff that you shoot, like weddings. Those are naturally usually in pretty open venues
spaces,
where you have the space to be able to go across the room and punt and use a 70 millimeter or an 85 millimeter and still get a good shot.
Because I think when I had my Canon, I got the kit lens, which was the 24 to 105. Yeah. And I always found myself in the 70s, 80s, even all the way up to 105. Yeah. Just that's the environment and the world of business and video that I've been in. So I think that's how I've developed my style, is just because that's where I was kind of forced to.
Style does develop by necessity.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yep.
It's as much a product of your environment as it is of you.
Yeah.
Just the kind of work.
And I've always loved a tight like shallow depth of field shot.
It's
That's just
lovely.
what I've always loved.
It's
So
a great look.
yeah.
But it's also the kind of look that you need to have more control over
Yeah.
to be able to get it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that can
Like
be a
weddings
little-
are hard to keep that consistent,
Mhm.
especially with the Blackmagic cameras because of our lack of autofocus.
That is fair.
Our lack of autofocus is big. Now that I have this,
That helps a lot. And honestly, I would rather have no autofocus and a magic fizz than autofocus.
because then the camera's not running the show.
Right.
You know?
I just don't trust autofocus.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was
Listen, the Lumix S5 was
pretty good.
mint.
Yeah.
Like mint. Like best. The reason I got it was because I was shooting weddings, and that's basically it. I was shooting weddings, and on the market was the best autofocusing system.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go Sony.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
A7S III is pretty darn good. That's a really good camera. Has a really good autofocus system.
Yeah.
Didn't want to go Sony.
Yeah.
I would have had to change everything. Like I would have had to change my lenses, my batteries, my cage, my everything.
Yeah.
So I went to the S5, bought an adapter, and I was able to use all my EF lenses.
Yeah.
You know, which I probably could have done with the Sony, but
Didn't
want to go Sony.
It's more, yeah. It's more of a leap.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But literally, it was rated like some of the best autofocus that you could get for $1,200 body.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So that's why I went that way.
My favorite autofocus system is actually on the iPhone. Or phones in general, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you can either just let it do what it's going to do, or you can tell it, hey, I want you to focus on this specific area of the frame. Like, do I trust a computer or a camera, however you want to define it? Do I want to trust a machine to make something in focus? I trust a machine to do that.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that it can do that. The tricky thing is, what does it think should be in focus?
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about shallow depth of field, because you know, if you've got like a close up and you've got someone like, you know, on the far right edge of the frame,
and it starts to focus on them, then you lose your whole shot.
Exactly.
Unless it's your style and you're being stylistic or creative with it, which is what some people try to throw out there.
Yeah.
Or your autofocus just messed up and it's not what you were actually going for.
Yeah. But in the case of an iPhone, especially like if you haven't toyed around with like the cinema or cinematic mode in the iPhones, it's incredible. They actually have like rack focusing built into it.
That's so cool.
Which is so nice.
That's
and
so
all you have
cool.
to do is just tap and say, okay, I want this is focus point A, and then tap on the screen. This is focus point B. And
So
it figures out the
awesome.
difference between those two, and it's good to go. Actually, the Blackmagic app just got an update after they did all the Blackmagic NAB announcements, which came out like the night after we recorded our last podcast.
Literally.
Which really annoyed me because we've had so many conversations.
Literally.
about all the
like
announcements.
every single one of our phone calls have been 20, 25, 30 minutes. And we'll be like, hey, you know, like for Friday, hey, we're going to do dinner this Friday. Yeah. Oh, did you see the Pixis and this and and this and
3 hours later.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't pay for minutes, which is what I always
thank
say.
goodness that
Yeah,
doesn't
if I
happen
did,
anymore.
I'd be broke.
Yeah. But the Blackmagic camera app for iPhone got updated with a few new features, but one of the bigger ones was that it has a rack focus system in it now.
Really?
With up to 3 points. So you can say, okay, I want, and it's a tap on the thing you want to be in focus at a given point. So you could tap on the main subject, like the person that's in the foreground here, that's your focus point A. Tap on the thing, like the plant that's in the background, that's focus
this
point
live?
B. It's live now. Yeah.
Like the app that you just showed me.
Yep.
How do you do that?
Well, no, so not the one I just showed you that's like the Bluetooth control. Like
Yeah.
the actual Blackmagic camera app.
There's a
That we're recording on the wide shot.
Oh, yeah. Okay, on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, how are you able to see the live view of the camera in the Blackmagic control app
Yeah,
or
not
whatever?
the Bluetooth controller thing.
Okay,
just
so
like
you
all
could
that.
do it in this.
You can do it in, you can do it in the camera thing. But no, you can't do it for.
Man.
Now it would be so cool.
That's what I was saying. I was like, dude, like my jaw was on the floor. I was like, are you kidding me? You could do
if
that?
You could do that. I mean, if you could do that, if you could do.
I don't need it anymore, but that would be pretty dope.
If you could do a touch to focus, it's a touch screen already. If they implemented a touch to focus on a touch screen native on a camera like the Blackmagic, that would be incredible.
Do you think that's what they're trying to allude to with the iPhone update, kind of a rack focus thingy system? Maybe they're trying it out there and seeing if it works.
I could see that. I could definitely see that
because we talked about it last time. They have that 1 point like autofocus, like it'll focus to the point that
but even then it's like you can't tell it what to focus on. It just picks. So yeah, that kind of autofocus in general is like really I do not trust it.
Yeah.
But that would be amazing if they could implement that. Oh. Even if it relied on like an external LiDAR sensor.
Right, yeah.
Because that's the one thing about like a LiDAR autofocus. Like, cool, it's got, laser radar and all this fancy tech. I still have the question of how does it know what to focus on?
The video you showed me, Justin Porter with the RS4 focus with the LiDAR. That was crazy.
It's crazy.
It popped up on my feed like 6 more times after you showed me, and I watched it every single time.
For those of you who haven't seen the new RS4 gimbal from DJI that they announced at NAB, along with it, they announced a LiDAR-based focusing system. So it's got, which they already had, but it's like a new version of it. It is now tied into the gimbal so that not only can it pull focus automatically, it will actually track the subject.
Yep.
Which is insane. So you've got Justin Porter, who's like, both of us.
Favorite person.
Both of us, we love him.
Justin, we love you.
Yeah.
I'm tagging him in that. We're making a clip.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they'll send us a Pixis.
He's just maybe. Hey, he's red, so he doesn't have a need for a Pixis.
I know. So. What a big ask,
But he's just holding the gimbal. He's just holding it still, and his subject is like walking around, and the gimbal's tracking. Yeah. He's like, get down on the ground. He like ducks to the ground. Thing ducks down with him.
Crouches, walks up. Yeah. He starts walking away, and it's still like he's not even paying attention, looking at the whole system, and it's just following him.
It's insane. Now my question then is still the same of like, how does it know what to focus on? How does it know what to track? Like, do you like select the person and like tell it like lock onto this subject and point this? Because like there are drones that do that. They have like the follow thing, and they optically follow you around.
It's a software type of a thing. You know?
I'm just curious how much control you have over what the computer thinks you're trying to do.
It could have been somebody off camera that like had the app for it. Like a Ronin app. Maybe if they developed something like that, that's like tied into like a Raven Eye. Because that's how the one system. When I bought my RS2 Pro, I think I got the Pro. I don't even know. But when I bought it, it came with the Focus like package. Like came with everything. And it had this little device that hooked into the bottom called a Raven Eye.
Okay.
And you could connect your phone through an app to it via Wi-Fi. It was like a 2.4 gigahertz signal or whatever. And it would give you controls and a live feed of the camera at the same time.
Yeah, so like a drone.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was kind of alluding to, is maybe the new one has it already like built in. Maybe it already has its like own frequency. It doesn't need like a separate system plugged into it.
That would be
and
cool.
Then it's getting that feed from the LiDAR's data or something.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff that came out of NAB this year that I'm like, I mean, we've already been geeking out about it just privately, but like, there's so much of it that I'm like,
we're gonna buy a Pixis
at some point. I would love one, but like, I want to see people get their hands on them and
I
start
just want
like
to do it because.
Oh, I want to do it too. But I'm just like curious. Like, I know it's cool. I know I want one. How badly do I want one? And like, what kind of things can you do with it?
So I guess my thing would be, I already plan on like. Within the next 6 months, most likely, right? I plan on upgrading. Like, that's my goal in the next 6 months is make this a B cam
Mm-hmm.
or a podcast room camera.
Yep.
And basically go to the next best thing.
Because you'd been talking about like the
6K full frame. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Pixis has the 6K full frame sensor, right? It's already that.
It's basically a 6K full frame in a different
in
body
the box
with a couple of extra like goodies thrown in.
Yeah.
And some more connectivity.
And that is like I look at the 6K Pro, right? And see what it does, internal NDs and things like that. Shooting outside the other day made me be like, okay, like are internal NDs and ND filters like super priority, or is, because it's better dynamic range too, right? It has 2 more stops.
So it is technically
a stop different.
It is a different sensor. I mean, unless I don't remember if the 6K full frame
I don't
has
know.
the same dynamic range. If it's the same exact sensor, but it's more than the 6Ks or 6K Pros. I know that.
So,
but I don't think I was looking. I don't think the Pixis has internal ND.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
it does not.
But frankly, that's an easy thing to add with like a matte box or whatever. It's convenient.
Yeah,
for
to
sure.
have it right there at your fingertips. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am. Is like within the next 6 months, I want to buy something that is, because mine, original 6K, it's been out for a while, whatever. Like I got into an older system when I bought that camera, right? And essentially I want to be up with the times, as we can say, right? So I'd be super interested in figuring out if I want to go like Ursa 12K, Ursa Mini 12K, or, do we just go big ball it and get the new Cine 12K, right? Something absolutely freakishly incredible that we probably wouldn't even know how to handle at the beginning.
And that's $15,000. Yeah.
It'd be like that,
It would be.
It's a business
It'd
expense,
be like that,
right?
Yeah.
But something like that, or do I just kind of just go with the new system in the Pixis?
That's why I'm really curious to see what the hands-on stuff with the Pixis is.
Dying to see something.
I know. I think they said dying. I think it's shipping in like July.
Okay.
So this summer
people will have it a little bit before then and do a little review on the drop date.
That would be cool.
It's usually how it goes.
Yeah. I imagine we'll start seeing that and like test shots and stuff. Yeah. That's the thing I'm really.
So that's what I want. I want to see, because we had talked about it. Now it's not a Alexa Mini or an Alexa 35 or anything like that, but it has the dynamic range in the realm of that. Yeah, in the realm of those.
It's like 13 stops of dynamic range versus 15.
Yeah.
You're getting close.
Yeah. So
for the price,
that's where I'm at. Is like I want to see those comparison shots. Not that I'm ever going to shoot with a Alexa or any of those types of things. Maybe be cool to have the opportunity to shoot with something like that.
Yeah.
But if I can get something relative to that look in the form factor and price range of what. That's Blackmagic's whole backing of their business.
Yeah.
Is how can we get, Hollywood grade cinema filmmaking equipment to the freelancer, small business filmmaker, or like everyday type of person budget, So if we could get a camera that's relative in the look of like an Alexa 35 or something like that for less than $3,000.
Yeah.
It's worth it,
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's the body of the original 12K? It's like $6,000 or something like that.
Like around $6,000.
So that's what I would really like to do, is figure out what the next camera is for me, and then how it would work in the setting of, like, if I was to get the original 12K, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the big difference between that being my A camera and the original 6K being my B camera.
Yeah.
Like, how off would that be?
The cool thing about it still being within the Blackmagic family is that you're still using the Blackmagic color science.
Very true. Yeah.
And so it's not going to be too far off.
Yeah.
Like the big difference is going to be dynamic range, but you can make something match.
Yeah.
With
how
that.
much of an actual difference is that really? Like, it's not.
I mean, it's a big difference in terms of what you can capture.
Yeah.
But like, you can make something match really nicely. So it's like, okay, so your B cam isn't able to get like all the detail in the brightly lit sky behind a person the way that the high dynamic range thing is. But if that's your B cam, you just know that, and you're like, okay,
right.
I'm tighter, I'm closer, like it's fine, Plus, like, we are both big fans of Buttery Lutz, who they basically make really good conversion LUTs for a lot of different cameras, Blackmagic included.
Yeah.
So
you introduced that to me, and then you also showed me how to put that on my camera,
load
like
it onto the camera and preview
it. Previewing it, and I'm like, this is amazing.
It's
like,
great.
This is awesome.
and the thing that I love about him so much is not only do I love the look of his LUTs as a starting point, I always adjust after, but like as a starting point, it's really good. I like it better than the vanilla ones, the ones that come with the camera.
They're not great.
They're very like their conversion from log color to, they call it video color.
Yes.
It looks very much like, it looks like video.
Yeah.
It's too contrasty. And
so that's what I always thought when I never knew what I was looking at. Like, I never really knew the difference of what I was looking at between actually having the LUT on there and not, right? But I never liked it. Yeah. I never really enjoyed the look of it.
If you look at the stuff side by side, it's like the Buttery LUTs gives it almost is like giving you the color version of the black mist filter a little bit. Yeah. Just giving it a little bit of softness, a little bit of cinema.
You know what I noticed a little bit when I was, how I like to post my 3-stack like videos, like my vertical,
your little clips from what you
my vertical stuff that I like to post on Instagram. But I noticed, compared to the first time I shot with the 6K, because I still have footage from the first time I shot with it.
Yep.
When I added the conversion LUT, the difference in my ability to balance my image in camera was like almost spot on, right? Like, compared to when I first did it and everything was just blown the hell out.
Right.
And the white balance was completely off. Like, it was pretty cool to see. That's just completely side note, like working with it and just comparing it to the car meetup that we just did.
Yeah.
I was like, I barely had to do any adjustments on any of it, right? I threw the conversion, and I was telling you, using the Gen 4. So I was using the Gen 4 LUT, threw that on there, and I made like the most minor adjustments to like a little bit on the temperature, like a little bit on the contrast, and I did a little S-curve, like I was able to do a little bit of S-curving and stuff like that. That was about it. Like I'm very impressed with myself.
Yeah.
Like, to say, like, I'm kind of starting to actually figure it out now that we're really hitting hard and doing a lot more work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always so cool to see how you evolve.
Yeah.
It can be terrifying to look back at your really early stuff sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I even look back at the wedding, like the wedding that we shot in March. I'm like, ooh, I could have done. You even said it. You were like, wow, the difference between when we started and the evening, like we could have totally adjusted throughout, which is not something that I thought about because I've never shot like a full wedding super in depth like we did with a Blackmagic system.
Yeah.
So I'm used to all my features being auto, like everything. My S5, I had everything on auto, so I never really manually changed anything.
Yeah.
But doing it with the Blackmagic now is like so cool. Like, it's so cool to see the adjustments that I make and how I can make an image from, 5 hours ago in different sunlight, different temperature, like still match that one 5 hours later.
Right.
Like it's so cool being able to do something like that.
Yeah.
Even though it's so minute and like people don't even appreciate the fact that they could do that. Like me, it like excites me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like when you have the manual control over it, and when you start to finally feel like, oh, I have the manual control and I'm making something better than the auto settings could. Because like at first when you're like, I'm doing manual control, it's always like, I'm messing this up. This might be better if I just left it at auto. My
manual control was like changing the amount of exposure, like the plus or minus button on the exposure thing on the
right.
And go ahead. I have a point that I'm gonna ask.
No, make your point.
Okay.
I'm just like,
I have a question.
Yes. Ask.
Okay. So it's a novice question, right?
Okay.
Why on like Canon and some of the like entry level Sony cameras and like the Lumix, why is exposure a +1, -1, up to like +5 or something, versus when you get to our systems now, that word and that button and that system just doesn't exist?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a very good question.
Thank you. That's right.
Basically what it's doing is you are still using their auto exposure system.
Mm-hmm.
The plus and minus is basically just saying you are saying offset from what you think it is.
Okay. Now, what is making it more exposed? Is that my ISO? Is that
it's working?
Like
it's
all
working,
kinds of things.
It's
right?
working. It's working. Usually, well, depending on the camera.
Okay.
ISO they will often give you control over.
Yeah.
But it's balancing between exposure or between iris and shutter.
Ah, yes.
So it's actually,
I never thought of it that way.
So it's controlling both.
Yep.
And so like
because there is shutter speed and stuff like that.
Totally.
Ah, so yeah, that comes together now.
And on a still camera or like a DSLR,
yeah.
you'll often see there's like, besides like auto, there's like full auto and then there's full manual.
Yeah.
And then in between on the dial, they'll have, I think they usually call it like AV or TV or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So that's, they call it aperture priority and shutter priority.
Yes.
So in that instance, you are basically saying, okay, I want control over the aperture priority. I want control over the aperture because I want control over depth of field, as an example.
Yes.
And you're basically telling you're telling the camera, okay, you are still in control. I don't want to think about shutter speed. I will tell you what iris I want. You change the shutter speed to make it look good with the iris that I have selected. And then vice versa. Of like, oh, I'm doing sports photography. I know I want my shutter speed to be this. Change my iris to do both.
The term exposure is like encompassing your ISO, your shutter speed, your aperture, and all that.
Yeah, because it has to, like, in terms of like the historical.
I feel like an idiot, but also at the same time, it like
no, they purposely obscure this stuff because they're trying to make it so that it's like it's easy for someone to like pick up a camera and do stuff, but then they don't actually understand like how it works,
right?
Or like,
because I could expose, like I could make something like you could say like when I was first doing stuff, I exposed this correctly and I like did a plus or a minus here and there, and it kind of like made it look better, but I didn't actually know what I was doing. I was on auto settings for everything else. Sure. So it's like,
because exposure is just, it is how much light is exposed to the film.
Yeah.
That's what the original thing is. And so anything that affects that light, so exposure or aperture.
I got you tripping up now.
I know. So aperture being wider or tighter is affecting how much light is getting on there. Shutter speed is affecting how much light is getting on and off there.
Yeah.
ISO is more of a digital thing.
Yeah.
In the old school world, that had to do with the film stock you were using. Basically, how sensitive is the film stock you're using.
Oh.
So it was, and
nice.
I can't remember if they used ISO to describe it. They might have back then, and that's why we call it ISO. Now it's just like.
What does that mean?
I have no idea. Isolated image, I don't know. But it basically was like, it basically
Next
just
topic.
meant how like, it just meant how sensitive is the film to light, or in our case, how sensitive is the sensor to light.
Yeah.
And it worked the same way. Super sensitive film, got more noise on it.
So that makes sense. So it's like ours. If we're overexposed or not at our native ISO, we have a grain or a basically. Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when I was like learning camera stuff and I was trying to figure out like, what is this aperture priority, shutter priority,
right?
And all
yeah,
because
there are those options on there,
mostly for still cameras.
Yeah. Well,
But
the S5 had that.
Did the S5 have
S5 had ASM
mm-hmm.
and whatever the other one was.
Going to full manual was the only way that you could actually control both aperture and
individually
and shutter speed individually. Otherwise the system and then there's like sometimes they will give you the option of like offsetting of like I know you think this is what you want, but I want it a little bit brighter.
Yeah.
What it does to get there, you have no idea. You have no control over it. You're just like, I want it darker, I want it brighter.
Yeah.
That's it.
Wow.
Which for most people, fine. Like, if you just know you want it darker or brighter, go for it.
If you don't want to know all the in-depths and things and it works for you, then just don't try.
Oh, yeah. I will
just stay out.
I will never like bash someone for using auto settings because like
it works.
It works. 90% of the time it works
pretty
great.
well. Yeah.
It's if
people get paid to use it, so it definitely works for people.
It's when you are getting into a situation where you have a vision in your head and you want to match that vision exactly.
You have to know what minute thing you have to do with each thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. This was educational.
I'm glad you feel that
Thank you, old man. Sensei.
I'm 3 years older than you.
I know.
We were both born in the 90s, man.
Yeah. I was almost a 2000s child.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you would have been, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's weird to think about, isn't it?
I am peak Nickelodeon, though. So.
Oh, same. I was a total Nick.
Did you ever watch Boomerang?
Are you thinking of this because you saw a TikTok about Boomerang recently?
Nope.
Because I literally saw a TikTok that was like, remember Boomerang? I literally got that TikTok.
It still airs. Like, it's still out there.
Does it really?
Yeah. Jetsons, Flintstones, all those. Yeah, it's still out there.
Yeah.
I watched it in a hotel, like when I went to New Jersey and like Boston and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's on one of the cable television.
That sounds right. I remember being.
It's not on Netflix.
Yeah. I think they have a lot of those on like, because I know that like Warner Brothers Discovery now has a lot of the like Hanna-Barbera cartoons in their
Dude, what a
catalog.
great era.
Right.
What a great era. Like it might just be us because we experienced it and lived it firsthand, but like
I mean, not
that was
like
such a great era.
Not like the old school. Old school Hanna-Barbera stuff came out well before we were born.
Well, that's what so the reason I don't know how long we've gone. Oh my gosh, it's almost 9:00. This is a long one, probably.
Well, you're the one editing this.
I know.
Enjoy.
I will.
We should wrap this up, but
let me finish this thought. So my favorite thing to watch was Scooby-Doo, original Scooby-Doo. All the VHSs, I had everything for it, right? And I think Scooby-Doo only played on Boomerang, like on cable TV. And that's how I got into all of those shows and like knew about it. And my grandparents, they only had, satellite TV and a PlayStation 1, and we couldn't play the PlayStation 1 like after 4 p.m. because they'd be going to bed. So we would watch Boomerang and stuff like that. But that is an iconic era of television.
Yeah.
Yep.
Truly. And we will never recapture it.
Nope.
Not in the same way.
And I hated watching it when I watched it.
Oh, you don't know what you got till it's gone.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this sucks. Watching the Jetsons and their, 3-pixel glory. And I'm just like, wow, this is slow. Like everything is so slow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's insane the pace difference.
Yeah.
If you want to see like slow filmmaking, watch the original Star Trek the motion picture.
Oh boy.
And tell me that those first 20 minutes do not drag. They are gorgeous, but it literally takes them 20 minutes to board the Enterprise because it's just slow tracking shot after slow tracking shot. The pacing is so fun. It's also them being like, we paid a lot of money for these special effects shots, and you were gonna sit down and you were gonna
gonna
watch every frame.
You're gonna love all of it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Well,
Old school stuff's great.
Yeah. Before we start, it's ironic that we are talking about things being slow paced when we've been going for this long.
Yeah.
So why don't we? I mean, we've kept the pace up, but let's leave the people wanting more.
Hey, cool thing. Over. No, this is relative. This is relative.
Immediate tangent. Okay. Go.
Cool thing. Mm-hmm. We have over 500 impressions on our Spotify.
Hey, there we go.
That's huge.
Yeah.
It's probably like 550 or something like that. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
That's big.
I think
we talked about it last time, like saying like, oh yeah, we had like 300 in the first.
We were in the mid 200s.
Yeah. So that's pretty huge.
We're getting there. For episode 3. Hey.
I think our last episode, not the one that just came out, what is this, 3?
This is episode 3.
So 1 has like 10 plays or something like that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's huge for nobody knowing, nobody having a clue who we are.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think the one that just came out today was like 4 or 5 when I last looked at it. That's great. That's so good for us.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy doing this.
Same. We would be having these conversations anyway.
Either way,
that's the funny thing.
But we decided to set up something, 45 minutes and then set it up and then shoot it and then take nights of our life to edit it.
And then still keep talking for like an hour after the cameras stop rolling.
I think we literally talked about, oh yeah, your super big brain idea that you didn't want to share on camera with your light bulb. Yeah, that was a 15-minute tangent afterwards.
I've implemented it. It's working. It's
really
great. Yeah.
Wow.
I now have a light
I
bulb
know,
that
and
will
the
turn
only
red.
person that you have to worry about is Kate. So I hope it would work, Cam.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
All right.
I now have a light bulb that will change color when I'm on a meeting, so that people know not to disturb me.
Not to disturb you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud of it.
All right. Let's actually wrap it up.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening. Find us on YouTube.
Yep.
Because the visual version of this podcast is you will get features.
And it ever evolves.
True. You can see the lighting change. I'm really curious to see how the lighting ends up looking with this after we do the color on it.
My crazy hairstyles.
Yeah.
And things. Yeah.
My hair too. My hair is getting long. Yeah. But thank you so much, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Things will have evolved even further. We will have even more to talk about. Let us know if there's specific questions you have, thoughts you want to share, topics you want us to cover. Interact. We are real people.
Yeah. And if you bring us a topic to talk about, we will talk about it, and we will probably talk about it for...
We will make a meal out of it.
20 minutes easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So make sure you give us a rating on Spotify, subscribe, do all those funny things people always ask for. We appreciate you.
Click all the buttons. Thank you guys.
Bye.
See you next week. Booyah.